Okay, I'm here. So if it wasn't obvious by last week's video length, and the pinned comment in said video, and my recent Twitter history, Smash may or may not have its hooks in me. Shocker, I know. Which is saying a lot because I don't even have online yet, because, well, Nintendo doesn't seem to know how to do online even if you throw them $20 a month, but it's fine. I have no qualms with being the snot-eyed bots. Fuck you, Daisy! But I'm already sidetracked and I haven't said a word about Warframe, so here's a word about Warframe. But first, one last thing. You may have noticed that I sound a bit different if you're a regular to the channel. Well, that's because I finally picked me up a mic that is not a garbage headset mic. Only took a year. Now, this is not meant to be a generic, oh, I couldn't do without you speech. I'm just saying this because it is 100% true. I really do have to thank you folk for just, watching. I know it's generic as hell to say, but I legitimately would not have invested in getting this new setup were it not for folks showing me that, yeah, folk do like the stuff that I put out. They don't think that the majority of it is absolute utter garbage. Only about a third of it is. So again, I know many of you have heard it all before. I didn't really know how to make this sound more genuine, for lack of a better word, but I am completely serious when I say this. Thank you. Knowing that there is interest out there is why I made the investment. So it really is all thanks to you guys. So now, let's talk Warframe. A lot was introduced with Fortuna, even if the majority of it was just, reskinned activities from Plains of Eidolon. But hey, we still got Fortuna 2 coming. Might even be out by the time this video is out, knowing how shit I've become at keeping a schedule. But of all the things that Fortuna introduced, the giant landscape, animal conservation, Garuda, banging music, ticker. One thing got me the most excited and holds the #1 place as my favorite thing introduced, K-Drives. And I probably sound like an absolute asshole saying this. How am I gonna sit here and tell you that K-Drives are my favorite part of Fortuna so far, but I won't touch Arcwing missions with a 50-foot pole? But I'm not joking, it's true. Maybe it's because it's one of the few actually brand new things introduced like animal hunting. Maybe it's just that it feels better than Arcwing missions to me. Or maybe it really is just because they're hoverboards. Or maybe it's because, Whatever the reason, I like them. When TunaCon 2018 was happening, I went into that with a lot of expectations. Hell, I turned many of them into a freaking bingo board. And even though I was able to predict this, I could never, ever predict the game turning into a better skateboarding simulator than Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5. But even so, when I was looking at the first ever footage of them in action, one major looming thought encompassed everything. What will their purpose be? Because Arcwings will always hold the title of fastest transportation across landscapes. What will K-Drives do that Arcwings cannot in terms of practical mechanics? Eagle-eared viewers may have noted me saying earlier that I don't like Arcwing missions. Missions is the key word there. Arcwing on the plains are actually fantastic in my opinion. They fit in that environment and they have a clear purpose, getting from point A to point B. Plus, they're not half bad combat-wise. I assume, because, again, I don't do Arcwing outside of mobility. But K-Drives immediately run into multiple problems. 1, they cannot pull an Itzal and blink ahead 900 meters. 2, they cannot fly. 3, they cannot go through walls. Trust me, I tried. And this is the crux of the issue. K-Drives are fun and all, but are they destined to just be a forgotten mechanic in the long run? Are K-Drives destined to go the way of channeling and parrying? Are they destined to go the way of the Triburos? And worst of all, are they destined to go the way of Lenaro? Well, maybe, but they can't be saved, I think. Let's first take a look at the territories that Arcwing owns. First is pretty obvious and one we've already gone over. They're the primary general transport of choice. Arcwings are capable of skipping over the majority of terrain that could possibly be in your way from the objective. K-Drives, on the other hand, have to abide by traffic laws and go around obstacles. So if you hop into a party and decide to K-Drive all the way from the center of the map to the ass end of nowhere because fuck Nefanyo, the rest of your team will have already gotten to the objective and ate their lunch by the time you get over there. Yes, you can pull a Skyrim horse and just ride over obstacles, but you still won't be getting to your objective all that quickly. It is true that for the first few weeks of Fortuna's release, I was using K-Drives to get to point A to point B, but that was only because I wanted to get standing, and, well, Vent Kids don't exactly have anything worth returning to. Which is good, because,
No more. Moving all racks and gear into cycle.
Gigging it up?
Yeah, it's square in the D7 vent tangle. Bang and bounce is dog. Keep the whole section up, we will.
I don't know what they're saying.
The second area that Archwings control are granting the user a new ability set. Each Archwing has their own abilities to use for damage or CC purposes, and while I have admittedly paid pretty much zero attention to Archwing abilities, because again, 50-foot pole, it doesn't take a genius to know that having abilities beats not having any whatsoever. And a lot of these powers are pretty damn solid things to have, especially the entirety of Itzal's kit because it's the fucking Itzal. But luckily for K-Drives, they have access to something that Archwings don't. Damage mods. Yeah. Woo. Alright, so I never said they were well designed. So here's my main idea for our skateboards. Make them the primary combat vehicle of choice. You know, a damage-dealing mount, essentially. Turn them into a weapon. And I'm not talking about like giving them abilities where you press a button, spend energy, and then something happens. I'm talking more of a weaponized design. How? Well, there are two phases. One, weapon precepts for K-Drives, and two, making the damage-dealing mods not be ass. I think we can all agree that would be pretty handy in general. Seriously, these values are pitiful to say the least. And take it from me, they are not worth it in their current state. I get that maybe their intent was to keep the damage values low because Corpus don't have any armor, but clearly they fucked up and made them too weak. And whilst I get their concern with making mods too powerful, my argument is, if they're too weak, no one is going to use it and your design intent failed, and everyone is going to be disappointed. You as a developer, and players as players. If they're too strong, folk would at least still use them, which is what you want. DE has a tendency to favor releasing things underpowered rather than overpowered, and then adjust them to be better in future patches. They have even admitted to doing this on purpose, and I totally get the idea. If you release something overpowered and had to nerf it, you'd be disappointing people. But the thing is, releasing things underpowered is also a problem. You can disappoint people by not buffing what needs buffing and just ignoring it all because maybe you had to move on to other projects. If something is overpowered, at least people would be using it. It's better for something to be too good than to be too weak. That's how frames like Revenant happen. They're created to be super weak at the beginning, but then they're not properly addressed because the update train has to keep going. And now that I fulfilled my daily purpose of shitting on Revenant for being nothing but a 4-button with terrible energy costs, back on track with K-Drives. Imagine if you could build your K-Drive with weapon precepts built directly into the board. Maybe you could drop some grenades at your trail as you blast through, blowing the fuck out of anything you come across. Maybe a weapon precept that allows you to energy lasso enemies to the board, and then you deal damage by dragging enemies along the ground as you ride. Maybe a weapon precept that spawns 2 gun drones that follows alongside you that fire at things as you move around. Hell, you could probably even just stick a goddamn sword to the front of the board with space flex tape. I don't care. There's a lot of creative ways that you could turn these damn things into what essentially would be another weapon in your arsenal. For an example, I've always felt that the operators should essentially be weapons because I can almost assure you, no one came into this game expecting to be the equivalent of a Persona user. Except with a really shit Persona that doesn't do anything, except for Umbra. But luckily, with how operators have been handled, a weapon is more or less what they have become. Operators don't encroach on the frames themselves, and instead they're more of just a branch of power for them. K-Drives, in my opinion, should be similar. No one came into Warframe expecting a skating simulator, but we can make K-Drives viable without totally stomping out the reason to use the frames. So the plan I have for K-Drives basically boils down to, if we can't beat Archwings in terms of mobility, let's beat them in terms of power instead. Given how quickly you can hop onto a K-Drive and begin shredding, I can totally see myself pulling one out and actually using it in combat if they were properly designed to do so. Any chance that I have to show off my lovely board of vroom vroom noises is always going to tickle me. And that's the thing, right? By giving K-Drives a purpose and something that we all do quite frequently, it makes the viability of them skyrocket. Archwings are being used in planes because moving from point to point on the landscape is a necessity. Shooting a corpus in the face for being a dirty, dirty annual lover is also something that we do very, very often. So by giving K-Drives a spot in the combat aspect of the game, I feel that they wouldn't fall into obscurity even after you capped out your vent kit standing. K-Drives were practically last-minute decisions. They were originally going to be Corpus vehicles, but they decided that being able to fly around on a piece of sheet metal is kind of a cool idea mechanic-wise. And god damn it, so do I! The last thing I want to see is them becoming as forgettable as Durf Anyo. Yeah, remember Durf Anyo? No! No one remembers Durf Anyo! So, to DE. As an ambassador for all those who pull off gnarly skateboarding tricks, which subsequently damages the infrastructure of constructions across Fortuna that probably requires Solaris to repair, let us become battle riders. I want the last thing for a corpus to see is my stupid ass scroll on my board. Or, at the very least, me busting my neck on a street lamp.